Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of The Explainer. I am honestly so excited to have you here today because we're tackling a topic that is literally dominating every headline, boardroom, and dinner table conversation right now. Today, we're doing a forensic breakdown of what analysts are calling the 75-year cycle of AI failure. And looking closely at the data, a really fascinating question pops up. Why do the smartest minds in tech keep falling for the exact same technological magic trick generation after generation? So if you've been feeling like this current AI hype is just making your head spin, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To really grasp the bubble we're sitting in today, we actually need to step back in time. Imagine it's 1958. You open up the New York Times and you read this breathless report quoting inventor Frank Rosenblatt. He's boldly claiming that within just 10 years, machines are going to walk, talk, write, and even reproduce themselves. Crazy, right? Now, fast forward 75 years to today's headlines. They are practically identical. We're constantly being told that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, is right around the corner, fully prepared to automate the entire global workforce.
And the thing is, this isn't just an isolated incident. It's a deeply ingrained historical pattern. For decades, we've essentially been sold these false horizons. Since the 1950s, incredible scientific pioneers, literal geniuses like Marvin Minsky, Herbert Simon, and of course Frank Rosenblatt have repeatedly stepped up to the microphone to claim they finally found the definitive ticket to human-level intelligence. In 1950, Rosenblatt swore we'd have machines as smart as humans in a single decade. They were visionaries, for sure, but on this specific timeline, they were entirely wrong.
So that brings us to the first part of our breakdown, the reality check. Real work versus simulated benchmarks.
For years now, AI models have been tested in completely sterile, simulated environments. It's kind of like taking a driving test in an empty parking lot. But a groundbreaking new study just dropped, introducing something called the Remote Labor Index, or RLI. Instead of using isolated academic benchmarks, these researchers decided to get real. They took actual paid freelance jobs directly from the platform Upwork. We're talking real-world gigs in game development, complex video creation, and detailed architecture. And they handed these professional briefs over to top-tier models like Claude and Gemini, just to see how they'd actually handle real human employment.
And here is the absolute record-scratch moment, 96.25%. That is the staggering failure rate of the absolute best-performing model tested, Claude Opus 4.5, when it was graded on professional standard jobs. Think about that for a second. Nearly 97 times out of 100, the AI could not deliver work that met a standard a client would actually pay for. It's just a jarring disconnect between the breathless AGI hype we've been hearing and the AI's actual practical capabilities today.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we look at the specific breakdown of these failures, a crystal clear pattern emerges. Look, we know AI is pretty competent at simple coding scripts or whipping up a quick, quirky image, but look at complex tasks. When given a complex video production brief for an 8-minute project, the AI delivered an 8-second video. When given architectural sketches, it generated floor plans that physically did not match the original designs. In other coding tasks, it flat out returned corrupt files. So it turns out, while AI can absolutely sprint through simple parlor tricks, it is utterly horrendous at complex, multi-step general work.
Which leads us perfectly into part 2, the diagnosis, the scaling problem. We have officially hit a brick wall, and it's known as the scaling problem. So for a few years, there was this kind of golden era where if you made an AI model 15 times bigger, it actually got roughly 15 times smarter. It was this beautiful, predictable curve. But as this definition outlines, that mathematical reality has broken, giving these large language models exponentially more computing power and scraping exponentially more data is just no longer making them proportionally more intelligent. Basically, the easy gains, they've already been harvested.
And this creates a really dangerous expectation. Think of it like this. Imagine a dad watching his baby. First, the baby learns to crawl. Amazing progress. Then, a few months later, the baby learns to run. Incredible, right? But then, the dad looks at that trajectory and illogically assumes that, well, in 2 more years, the kid is going to be able to fly. That is exactly the flaw in our current scaling logic. Just because AI went from barely speaking to writing decent college essays absolutely does not mean it's on a guaranteed, linear path to superintelligence.
To back this up, let's look at a quote from Yann LeCun. He's an absolute titan in the field and the creator of convolutional neural networks. He points out that he has literally lived through 3 of these generations of overpromises, and this current one is likely wrong again. Why? Because current large language models really just mimic people statistically. They are unbelievably good at predicting the next word in a sentence based on what humans have typed before. But, and this is absolutely crucial, they haven't abstracted a working model of the physical world. Being fluent in language manipulation is essentially just a statistical magic trick. It's entirely different from genuine intelligence.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we mean. Let's call it the mimicry trap. Imagine you train an AI bot to read every single rulebook ever written about chess, and it can flawlessly recite those rules right back to you. Sounds incredibly smart, right? But then you sit it down at a physical chessboard, and on its third turn, it moves a rook diagonally. An illegal move. It regurgitated the language of the rules perfectly, but it never actually understood the underlying logic of the game. And sadly, that is exactly what our AI models are doing with human reality right now.
All right, moving into part 3, the side effects, the hallucination tax.
I want to introduce you to this concept called the hallucination tax. Because these models confidently present false information, what we call hallucinations, there is a severe loss in workplace productivity happening right now. Human workers are now having to spend their incredibly valuable time manually double-checking every single sentence, line of code, and data point an AI produces. Replacing reliable human intuition with what is, at best, a flawed time-saving tool? Well, that's just fundamentally bad business.
And the math on this is incredibly painful for businesses. Let's say an AI model only hallucinates or makes up about 10% of the facts in a meeting summary, or far worse, a medical file. Because the human worker doesn't know which 10% is fabricated, they are forced to meticulously verify 100% of the document just to hunt down those hidden, potentially dangerous errors.
This creates a really tragic, cascading failure in the modern workplace. Let's walk through it. Step 1. Companies fire a portion of their staff to implement AI, hoping to save some money. Step 2. The remaining, now completely overworked staff are forced to manually verify all the sloppy outputs from the new AI systems. And Step 3. Overall company productivity actually plummets. The workers caught in the middle of this mandate are incredibly frustrated. It's literally like doing the digital equivalent of cleaning up a toddler's mess all day long.
But look, the hallucination tax isn't just about lost profits or annoyed employees. It is actively putting human lives in danger. In the medical field, the rush to adopt AI without a solid, logical foundation has led to literal code-red malfunctions. The sources detail absolutely terrifying reports of botched surgeries simply because AI misinformed surgeons. In one horrific case, an AI's error resulted in a punctured skull and a major stroke for a patient. Analysts warn this is the tragic, real-world result of prioritizing rapid tech adoption over rigorous human safety and logical foundations. It's a sobering reality check.
So where does this leave us? Let's look at part 4. The prognosis, the peak of inflated expectations.
So the crucial point is this. According to analysts using the famous Gartner hype cycle, society is currently perched right at the very top of the peak of inflated expectations. Billions upon billions of dollars are being misallocated into what is essentially a short-lived illusion. Analysts point out that we're seeing the exact same dynamic from the 1950s all over again. It's driven heavily by intense market pressure rather than actual technological reality.
And you know what? The data suggest this bubble is already beginning to burst. Gartner predicts that by next year, 50% of the companies that fired their human workers to replace them with AI will be forced to hire them right back. A massive 50% reversal. That is huge. The illusion is literally cracking as reality sets in, and companies are starting to realize that mimicking language is absolutely not a substitute for human competence.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Are we truly on the verge of a silent breakthrough that will finally shatter this 75-year cycle of failure? Or, as critics are increasingly beginning to ask, is this massive AGI push just the latest illusion in tech history? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep your eyes open, stay focused, and the next time you read a breathless headline promising the AI revolution, I really hope you remember the math, the history, and the reality we uncovered today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.